but you do need to, you're going to write things down, my friends. If you've done a workshop with me in the past, there is a lot of interaction, and I want you to like get into all of your stuff and so forth. So we're going to go ahead. I will just keep letting people in as they come. And let's just get started. So welcome to Balance and Boundaries and Burnout. Oh my. And for those of you who may not know me, I am Janessa. I'm a certified career coach. I also do corporate facilitation. I'm a keynote. And I am all about loving the work that you do. If we're going to work 80,000 hours in our career, we deserve to enjoy the work that we do. So all of my work, both with individuals and in corporate, is all around making sure that individuals are able to lean in and love the work that they're doing. I do that through NLP, human design, DISC and values, subconscious reprogramming. I am a clinical hypnotherapist, EFT practitioner, and a certified success coach. So this is who I am. Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. And let's dive in. Oops, wrong direction. So this is what we're going to go over today. And this is why I'm going to talk fast. What does burnout look like? What is the cycle of burnout? Like, how does this happen? What does balance look like for you? We're going to take some radical responsibility. Then we're going to learn how to create boundaries like a boss. And then you're going to make an action plan for success. All right. If at any point you have questions and so forth, actually just take yourself off mute and ask me, as opposed to doing it in chat so that I don't have to like read and so forth. I am facilitating and speaking all by myself today. So let's keep going. Go. Go. Why aren't you going? Hello. Yep. And then we go 17 ahead. Hold on. There seems to be a lag. 1 second. Thank you for your patience. Here. Let me start again. So first, we're going to start at what does burnout look like? And clearly, true documented burnout can be hospitalized. We're talking like full on exhaustion and so forth. But I want to talk about what it looks like for you when you know you are just dragging butt big time, when you can't kind of get your act together, where you're feeling like everything is loaded down upon you and so forth. What does that look like? So here's an example. This idea of we are doing all the things for all the peoples and we are just at our wits' end. So I want you to draw a circle, a big circle, maximize your piece of paper. And I want you to write a circle, draw a circle, and outside of the circle, I want you to put all of the signs, your signs or symptoms of what burnout looks like for you. Is it exhaustion? Is it I can't sleep? Is it brain fog? Is it really being on a very short fuse? Is it just meh? What is it for you? Because each and every one of you comes to the situation in a completely different, we're in different phases of our lives, we do different work. It is different for everyone. Like if you went online and Googled burnout, it would give you 5 things, but that's not necessarily what this is for you. This is where you are not feeling in your best self. So I just want you to kind of flood the outside with what does that look like for you? And then looking at those symptoms and those signs, 2 things. One is, are these truly burnout or are they other signs of something else? One clear thing, depending on how old you are, could be perimenopause, menopause, on this concept of especially like exhaustion, brain fog, um, interrupted sleep, and irritability, all of those things. But here is the concept of kind of telling the difference between what does burnout look like and compared to perimenopause or menopause is the fact that the symptoms for burnout, if you were to take a vacation, they will alleviate, right? If you were to take a break and take a breath, those symptoms would go to the side. Whereas if they're still holding on, those are likely more perimenopause, menopause. The other thing I want you to think about is, are you experiencing, if you're in this general malaise of like, ugh, nothing's really working for me right now, especially within my career, is it burnout, which is when you're doing too much for too long, kind of doing all the things for all the people, kind of running yourself ragged and becoming overwhelmed, and then even the smallest tasks seem to be impossible? Or are you unfulfilled? And that's where you just don't care enough. Like, you're done. Like, it's like this work is no longer filling me up. I'm uninspired. I'm just kind of going through the motions. So Michelle, who just started, where we drew a big circle on our piece of paper, and on outside of the circle is like, what does burnout, what is like this whole idea of I'm not at my best self? What does that look like for you for symptoms? And then for everyone, looking at those symptoms, would you say it's because you're doing too much and are going all the time? Or are they because I'm not really tapped into this. Like I, I don't have enough in my life that is interesting. Okay. There's just, there's a fine line. And I always say, like, we can pick up, I can take the girl out of the grind, but I can't take the grind out of the girl. So sometimes when we get into this place of like, oh, I'm just not connecting, I just feel so burnt out. And we think, oh, let me just pick up and let me go to this new place. But if we're not connecting with the work that we do, we could pick up and move 17 different times, and it's not going to make a difference because it's the work that's a problem, not the way you're working. So both of them need to be addressed. Both of them will address today, but it's just to keep an understanding of kind of where you're at as it relates to that. So ask yourself, do I still find moments of joy and purpose in my work, even if I'm tired? If I took time off, would I come back feeling refreshed, or would I still feel stuck? And do I feel exhausted from too much or drained from too little of what excites me? Because we so often are thinking, okay, I'm totally burnt out. I'm doing too much. I need to cut all of these things down. Where sometimes it's like we're needing to bring in something that actually recharges us, as opposed to, to offset. This is all about, again, balance, boundaries, and burnout, and all of how they're interacting with each other.
Janessa,
Yes,
I do have a question.
go for it.
So what happens when, for me, is I can go away and come back all motivated, and then you get back into your home situation. Like you can travel, you can do all these great things, and you come back and you're like, oh, I'm ready to get started. And then the house, the routine, everything, that doesn't change. So it's kind of like when you're gone, you come back with all these great ideas and you're motivated, and then you come back into, like, I come back into the house, which is always a source of stress because there's always a project going on or something needs to be done, and that immediately saps
And
the
that's where,
motivation.
exactly. And so that's where first, if we know that, like, okay, all of this crazy, if we take a break from it, it comes down. But if we never change the crazy, we're just going to go right back into it, which is an amazing segue, my friend, into kind of what this cycle looks like. So we're in this, let's say we're in this balanced place, right? Like you've just come home from vacation, you're like, I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I am now at like my balanced place. And we can stay in that sustained success for a time, but then our boundaries start to erode. Or if we've never had them, we're going back into that old cycle of like, let me just keep going into the grind. And then as those erode, we start feeling our burnout, whatever that looks like for us. And the only way to come out of that truly is not to just go on vacation and take a break from it. It is to then establish boundaries. And we'll talk about that. Boundaries are not just like, let me put up this line in the sand and you're staying over here and I'm staying over here. There's a multiple ways of creating boundaries and what that looks like. And then we can start it again. And it is a continuous cycle because we get comfortable and, we start like letting down our guard and someone asks like, can I do this? And one thing after another, and then we go back into the cycle. So that's the piece of like, know that similar if you were to stand on a balancing board, right? Like, like if you were on a board that was on a fulcrum and you're just going back and forth, you cannot stand still. It is forever. You're having to kind of find your equilibrium, and at any given moment, you could topple. In any moment, you are always in kind of flux to be able to maintain that balance. And that's where we have to be able to see what that looks like for us as to what we're wanting and what triggers us or what throws us off so that we know what is the correct way to keep us in that balanced way. What are those little movements that we have to make? So on the outside of your circle, we have what's the ramifications when you are not in balance, right? What is happening when you are just doing too much for too many, or doing too much of what doesn't actually align with you? And is this going to go again? Why does it want to pause out and so forth? Bear with me. So now I want to know what balance looks like for you. And again, that will be absolutely different for every single one of you. Balance for one might be, oh my gosh, I give myself 15 minutes between constant breaks during my day, or constant meetings during my day. And another person's like, I'm only going to take one meeting a day, right? Like everyone is going to be different. So I want you to fill the circle with what balance means to you. What does that look like? Where do you want to be? What does balance look like for you? And kind of flood the inside of the circle with what that looks like. And for those that just joined us, we're drawing a big circle. And on the outside of the circle, what does imbalance or burnout look like for you? And in the circle, on the outside of the circle, we're writing what imbalance or what burnout looks like for you. How does it show up for you? And on the inside of the circle, what does balance look like? Where do you want your life to be? When I say you are balanced, centered, aligned, in flow, nourished, refreshed, and so forth, what does that look like? What needs to be happening for you to have that? And that's what we want to put inside the circle. So outside are all of these like, ugh, this is not working. Inside the circle is, this is what balanced looks like for me. And it might have been so long ago, you don't even know what balanced looks like or what it used to look like. So right now, what is a realistic thing for you to think about of what you really want life to be? How many hours a day do you want to be working? How many different activities do you want to be involved in? What things do you want to say yes to and what things do you want to say no to? What things do you want to add in? What do you need? Do you need time in nature? Do you need time with creativity? Do you need time with connecting? What do you need? And here's where I'm going to have a little bit of tough love, my friend. On the outside of the circle are all of the things that are happening to you, the things that are a result of boundaries that have not been set. Saying yes when you should have said no, or taking on, really, when you say yes to when you should have said no, or when you kind of put parameters on things. When things get out of control, these are the things that are happening to you. So you can see right here, what are the effects of the decisions that you made, which is where we take radical responsibility. So the empowerment formula, on the corner of your paper, somewhere, I want you to write this formula. C is greater than E. I then want you to cross out the E, and I want you to circle the C. And this is, the empowerment formula is that cause is greater than effect. When we are of effect of others, like I am so burnt out because my boss just keeps going and going and going and he never stops and I just can't come up from air. Or I don't have a moment's time because my kids are on me all day long, right? It's someone, another force is upon us when we are keeping our focus on the effect. And when we're at effect, we step out of the equation and we are like, I can't do anything. There, it's him, it's them, it's all the other things. I am not in control. Which when we are at cause, we can see that anywhere we are in our life, career, and so forth, is as a result of a multitude of decisions that we made. We put ourselves right here, right now. It's not to say that we are for blame of everything. It means that we are a cause, that we can see our part in wherever we are. So going back to the example of my boss is always coming at me, coming at me, coming at me. Where did you not say no? Where did you say it was okay? Where have you overextended and so forth? Where is your part in this situation? Okay. So looking at all of those symptoms, all of the things that are happening when you're in burnout, and now looking at all of those things inside, starting to see where you, for each and every one of them, is at cause. If you need 10 minutes in nature every day, what decision are you making that is not doing that? And once we understand that we have that, we are only 1 to 2 decisions away from making a change to shift this whole balance, then creating boundaries is so much easier. Because then we can see we're in the driver's seat. Okay? Not to say we're going to get to difficult conversations and so forth, but once you are like, okay, this is a crappy situation I have found myself in. We could go back and look at all the decisions you made, but more importantly, what are the decisions you need to make now to get you out of the situation? So now let's create some boundaries like a boss. And we're doing great on time. All right. Really, boundaries, we think of boundaries as only saying no. I'm not doing that. And we think of them as that we're having to say no to all the people's outside. I have to say no to my husband, to my partner, to my children, to my boss, to my coworkers, to my friends, to my family. I just have to say no. And that's not the only thing that a boundary is. Boundaries are also saying no to yourself. No, I'm no longer going to do this. And more apt, saying yes to yourself. Yes, I am worth doing these things. Yes, I am going to make time for this situation. It isn't just this like arbitrary line. Again, I'm on this side, you stay over there, and so forth. So boundaries, I look at them as several. One is coming to a consensus. You and another person finding a way to make a situation work for both parties. I did the email this morning about how Mir wants to, which you might not have gotten because you were already registered. I told the story this morning that Mir, my youngest, needs to hit things to feel better. And a constructive way of hitting things to feel better is hitting golf balls. And so he, if he had his way, would come home every single day and ask me to take him to the driving range, which not only takes time, but it also is like costly. If you put 7 days, we're talking like $100 a week in hitting balls and so forth, which is not sustainable. So he has a need that I want to hit things and I need this to get my focus, to be able to bring me to my center, to bring me my calm, to let off my steam. And I have a need of not wanting to go to the driving range every day and so forth. So we had to come together to come up with a way that this could work for both of us. So consensus. So in the end, we got him a net that he can hit outside. And when I tell you that he was up this morning, up, showered, dressed, teeth brushed, all done and outside at 7 a.m., hitting balls before school. So it is a win-win-win. But so one is a consensus. It's not just like, I'm doing this, like it or not. There are some situations, but think of it as a consensus of like, where can we work together? How can we make this work? One is that you need a system. If things are getting out of control, let's say, I am so busy, I can't get dinner on the table. What is a system? What is meal prepping? What's meal planning? What is bringing something in from the outside? How can we take the things that are bogging us down and create a system to make it easier? Another boundary is creating a routine. If for you to create that balance on the inside of your circle, you need to set up routines. For example, if you need time in nature every day, where can you put that into your day so that it's locked and loaded and you don't have to think about it? How can you schedule it in? How do you stack it with something you're already doing? And so forth. What is it that you need? How can it be addressed with a routine? And then what are the conversations that you have where you're having to let go of something or say, no, I'm no longer doing this? End of story. That is a piece I feel like we're always caught up in that part. And that part that we are needing, that's always going to be a hard conversation. And I don't like hard conversations, so I'm just going to suck it up because how hard is it? I'll just do it this one more time. I'll just do it this one more time. I'll just do it this one more time. And those add up. And over time, we are getting more and more and more resentful and exhausted and stressed out and on a short fuse, and we're losing sleep and we're losing hair and we're doing all the things, right? Each one of these little things seems inconsequential at the moment, but when they are stacked on top of each other, they start to add up and accumulate. And then we're at our breaking point. So where now do you need to set a boundary? So to avoid getting to the outside of our circle and to be able to stay in this internal area where we have the balance that we're needing, I want you to write along the circle what boundaries need to be put in place to assure that you can protect the balance that means what balance means for you. Okay? So where are you needing to have a conversation? Where do you need to, or new agreement? Where do you need to set in a system? Where is it a routine? And where is it I am done, I need to let this go? So make sure that for each thing within your circle, if it is something that is hard for you to be able to maintain on a regular, you've addressed it along your circle with a boundary of what that needs to be. And then I want you to make a star by each one that's truly a boundary or a commitment that you're making to yourself. That this is actually, again, going back to that radical responsibility, something that's more about you than it is with the other party. I'm going to stop share for a second. Come back to all of your beautiful faces. I'm going to check the chat. Saw the picture of Mir. So far, how are we feeling? What is your, do you see where you can create balance? Are there any ahas that you have had? And looking at it, I really feel the visualization, even if you're not a kinesthetic learner or a visual learner, there's something about actually seeing all the stuff that you want and need kind of in that protected place and be able to see what that balance is. So anyone want to share some insights that they've had?
I can share.
Go for
Can
it.
you hear me?
I can. Go for it.
Okay. So you said it could be burnout or being unfulfilled, and I feel like maybe I'm unfulfilled. It's not a matter of burnout, but it just feels like the work is meaningless, uninspiring, going through the motions. Like helping people is great, but it's not fulfilling me. So yeah,
Yeah.
have
And
to think about how to make changes.
that's where, exactly. And that's where we can, if we aren't in tune with, is it because I'm so passionate and in this so much that I'm burnt out, or I got nothing left in my tank for this work, that dictates or helps inform where you go next. Because again, we are so conditioned to, you got to pick that thing. This is what I do. And so I have to keep doing the thing that I do. And we're just going to pick up from the job that we're at and plop ourselves down in the next one. And it's good for a while because it's new and it's interesting. And we're starting, there's a learning curve and so forth. But once we figured it out, we're like, I don't like this either. So then we just keep hopping and hopping and hopping. So that's a really good awareness of like, there's all the slowing down that you can do, but it isn't going to rev you up. So where can you start to add in, even if it's not a career change right now? What are the things that you can add into your life? That's almost another boundary. Where can I add in so that I have things that I'm looking forward to? Anyone else?
Hey, hi, it's Zara. So I have been thinking I love to give and I love to create. Like that's my passion, but realizing that I need to give to myself in order to give to others. So making a balance. Like I do a Sunday women's group And I was thinking, I want to join a Sunday class, but how can I continue giving to that Sundays group that I run? And also having it for myself, I was like, okay, maybe I can do 2 times a week that, and I mean, twice a month give, and then twice a month take for me to keep that balance, because I need for me too, in order to continue creating and giving without the burnout.
Exactly. And so there's that piece of where can I, it's always that balance. So where can I give and where can I take away? And that's, coming to that consensus place. We so often, I say this all the time, when we think about, this isn't about self-care, but it is, right? This is like self-care at the max. There's so often that we go to this place of like, okay, if I'm going to say no and say yes to myself, I'm going to not have as much to give to my family. Like, if I'm not going to do this, like, oh my gosh, I'm taking away. So we always see it as an equation where it's our family minus us is what they have left. But if we look at it as a multiplication, that the more we give to ourselves, the more we have the energy to be able to do the work, do our career, do our family, have connections, the more we have to give. And so there's this piece also of like, what in our life is kind of, if we think of ourselves as a battery, what charges our battery and what drains our battery? And obviously, unless you love laundry, laundry's a good example. Nobody is like energized by doing 4 loads of laundry, right? There's always going to be the things that we have to do that we don't enjoy doing. But if those are here and all of the things that we do love are so much more, then that helps offset it. But when we're doing all the things, everything that we're doing, none of it charges us, then we're always going to feel depleted. Like you could get 19 hours of sleep and you're still going to feel depleted, right? It's not necessarily, I am a huge proponent of 8+ hours of sleep, but sometimes you could sleep and sleep and sleep. That's not what it is, right? You could go to yoga. It's not, it's like, I say, like, if you're drinking green smoothies and are like on a clean diet and so forth, but you're going to a toxic work environment or no longer align with your work, you're still going to feel like completely depleted. No amount of, fresh squeezed orange juice is going to offset that. So we always are working on these little symptoms and like trying to like work at the granular level, where this is, I want you to look at this as a much wider view of what is really at play here. Any other questions or thoughts, insights?
So
Michelle.
question. I always get so inspired. Obviously, you've known me for a long time, and I look at all this, and I can do this, and I put my plans, and I get the daily practice and all the things, and then I do it for 2 weeks, and then I go back to my old ways. So how do you continue?
I love when these segues work so well. All right,
I
so
think I didn't have
let's,
this tagged, but like
yes,
that's
let's,
what I need. I need how to continue it.
awesome. All right, so that is the next piece, right? Hold on, are we going to, please work? Okay, so you now have gained awareness of what balance looks like for you and what imbalance looks like for you, and what you believe is the key to those boundaries, systems, routines, consensus, and conversations, right? But you have to know, just like I said, each of you comes to this conversation from we're different ages, we have different family makeups, we have different careers and so forth. And so I am not coming here. You could go to ChatGPT and say, how do I overcome burnout and how can I set up boundaries? And it's a very blanket way of doing that. But we're all so incredibly different. And so thus we need to get a deeper awareness of ourselves, or really look at ourselves as to what is at play, what keeps us from being able to stick with it. Why can't I ever do this? Why am I letting this come into me? I've done this a million times. Okay, Janessa, great. I've done this, but I can't do it. Okay. So I asked for you, some of you that might have just registered now probably didn't have time. Listen to this and then go back and pull this chart after the fact. Human design is my newest obsession. So for those like Michelle, who's been with me a long time, I am a DISC and values coach. I use DISC, which is a behavioral assessment. I still use that, but this gives me so much more. And I will be honest that human design is very woo. If you go to look at where it comes from and so forth, you might think I'm a crackpot. But when I tell you that every single chart I've pulled for people, it is spot on. And the concept is it's pulled similar if you have ever done your astrological chart. It's based on where the planets and moons and all the things were in alignment at the time of your birth, where you were born, as well as the physics of the space that you were born. So was it how much dark matter, light matter, neutrinos? I'm telling you, it's very crazy. But in any case, that aside, if you're looking at your chart, for those who are looking at it right now, there are things on your chart. Well, there's about 100 pieces of data that I can go and dig in with you, but these are ones that very treetop that I want you to look at as far as how they play into setting boundaries. So this little arrow in the top left is your digestion arrow, and it is all about consistency. So if you have a left arrow, you are all about structure and routine. And for those who've been with me a long time know that I had an online community for women called A Daily Practice. I have a left arrow. And so in my mind, everyone can benefit. Just set a routine. Just do the system, do the routine, right? If you have a right arrow, you are more go with the flow. You like variety. Doing the same thing every day is stifling to you. So if on your boundary line, you have all of these, I want to put these routines in, systems into place, and you have a right arrow, you need to rethink that. Everything that's left arrow is like, this is what society says. This is the norm of being consistent. You can be consistent, but in your own way. So for example, if you, to be balanced, need to have more movement in your life, okay, then you are more tend to be like, I'm going to do yoga, and I'm going to do yoga on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I'm going to do it at this time and so forth. When in actuality, it is, I just need 10 minutes of movement. And today I feel like walking, and tomorrow I will do like a 7-minute workout on my phone. And, I might go to the gym. Like, you have to follow your own rhythms. So if you have had a hard time holding to routines and systems, this is the place to start. If you have a left arrow and it's still hard, I would challenge you to look at what is then deeper than that, because we can only be consistent on things that we actually care about. So then I would go back and ask you all this thing that you think you need for balance. Do you? Or is this one of those shoulds? Like, I should eat better. I should move more. I should move up the ladder. I should want to manage people. I should, so on and so forth. And so then we cannot be consistent, right arrow or left arrow, for anything that does not actually hit us in our core. In human design, there's 5 different energy types, and how you feel and how you are to respond to the world and kind of show up and do is completely different depending on your energy type. So, Michelle, I looked at your chart. I looked at everyone who did it. You're a manifester. And manifestors are all about communicating and creating a vision and starting the going and moving everyone forward, not the doing. You're not built for doing. So these are the types of things that the intricacies of a human design reading can give you to be able to see kind of where you might be falling down.
It's funny. I took this last night, but yesterday during the day, I said that exact thing to my boss. Like, don't give me the tasks. Like, I can visualize it. I can make it happen, but don't give me the tasks.
Yeah.
Like myself. Yeah.
But we're all conditioned that we have to do all the things and so forth. So for those who are projected, like if you pulled your chart and you're a generator, a manifesting generator, you are doers to the nth degree. Projectors, manifestors, and if we have any magical unicorns that are reflectors, not the case. So that's understanding. Once you see that, feel that, know that, then you navigate boundaries in a completely different way. So if you have, so this up here, this is your crown and anja. If they are colored on your chart, these are both open. If they're colored or defined, you have a tendency to overthink a situation. You make decisions you're trying, even though there's like a 1% of the world is meant to make their decisions in their brain. Everyone else, they need to feel it in their body. And so thus, when we're going and trying to set a boundary, we go to this like, oh, but I should, like, for me to excel in this role, I don't want to do this, but this is how I'm going to make it to the next level. And this is what I need to do. And it's not that like we go back and forth and back and forth. So notice if you have definition in your crown and anja, this area, that you're probably overthinking the situation when you just have to just do it. There's a Brene Brown quote that I cannot re-find, which she talks about the concept that having those kind of setting that boundary and having those awkward conversations are literally 5-minute conversations, 5 minutes of pain versus a lifetime of resentment and pain and stress and all those symptoms. Okay. But if we're always trying to find the logical reason and maybe we could just do this another way, you're going to keep yourself stuck. If you have, this is your throat, this part right here. If your throat is defined, in other words, it's colored in, you are able to communicate your needs. If you are open, if it is uncolored, you are better at communicating for others. You have a very difficult time communicating your own needs. Not that you can't. It's just once you have the awareness of that, then you realize, okay, it's not that I can't. It's just I have to find the right way that works for me. If you have this is the ego, which is also known as the heart. And if this is undefined or open, you have a difficult time seeing your own self-worth. You can see all the other people's self-worth, but you don't see your own. And so if you have an open ego, you are much more apt to people please and over deliver so you can prove your worth. And there's no amount of doing that will ever satisfy your need because that isn't how you're built. So again, having the awareness of where are you overextending yourself, where so often we're doing all the things and the other people, they don't even care. They don't need all the things. They are perfectly fine. We have built it up as like we have to do these things. And then the last one that I'm going to note, and again, there's like thousands of data points on here, is if this is defined or colored, this is your solar plexus, and this is where your emotions come from. So if you are defined, you are more apt to let your emotions come into play when you're making decisions and you're communicating. And there is that time when you like, I want to keep it together. I don't want to show my weakness. I can't show my emotion, and so forth. And yes, we're going to get to the piece of like the steps to advocating for yourself. And one is being able to communicate confidently and trying to keep the emotions at bay, which is, again, easier said than done if you have a defined solar plexus. The other thing is if you have an open solar plexus, you take in all of the emotions of all the other people, and then you amplify it out. So if you are having a consensus conversation or a boundary conversation with someone who is more emotional than you will start to take on their emotions and then project them back out. If you are not aware of the fact that I'm coming to this conversation, even Stephen, here's my bag. This is the emotions I'm bringing. And as you have the conversation, if their emotions are coming, that is them. This is me. And I'm going to keep going. But unless you have that awareness, these are all the parts and pieces that you are not able, that you've probably have been encountering along the way, and have just keep beating yourself up and trying the same thing over and over again. And this is the time I'm going to do this, and it's going to stick. You have to have that personal awareness. And so that's peeling down into, we also do like a 5 whys exercise to really get to what's the root cause of why you're not able to keep that boundary. Now that's a lot and a little all at the same time. Any questions on those pieces?
Where can you read more about all of this? Is it on that? Is it linked into like the results I was just looking at, or?
No, so because you're just getting the chart, and so you're getting the big pieces. So I do full readings, but a place online that I like to go to, I don't actually know if it's that great of a site, other than it's just very well organized, which is called ahumandesign.com. And so when I do readings, we go through like your energy type, your strategy, your authority, your profile, and then we get down into the granulars. Because if you don't understand how you are supposed to kind of show up in the world and how you are choosing what you're to do and how you make a decision on if you to do that or not, the rest is null and void. So those are the 3 most important pieces that you need to have to be able to leverage your human design.
Thank you.
So now, go ahead.
Sorry, Janessa. So I did mine right before coming on, and I went searching for my birth certificate. And I'm like, in my mind, I have this time that I was born. Like, obviously, I know my birth date, but like, I was like, I think it's 7:22 in the morning, but I don't really know that's right. I know that it was time in the morning. So because I think 2 of these things are opposite of what I am. So what if I was really born at 3 a.m. on that? Would it make that big of a difference?
It can, because I mean, for the most part, if you pull charts like every 2, and that's what I do when someone doesn't know when they were born, I pull charts every 2 hours and see what the difference is. And then there's a series of questions to be able to kind of narrow it down. For the most part, however, that as long as you're close, there's usually, in any given day, there's usually not more than 2 energy types, and there's not huge shifts within a day. But, for my mom, she was born on, I knew her birth date, but I didn't know her time. And she could have been a manifestor or a generator, and they're very different. And so I used a coach to be able to help me to kind of figure that out.
Okay.
The other piece, if you're not feeling it, like if it's not hitting you, it's more likely that you have been conditioned to operate like someone else. Our parents have conditioned us who were conditioned by their parents, and we have already conditioned anyone that we're responsible for. And so there's also a lot of generator energy between generators, pure generators and manifesting generators. They make up over 70% of the world. And so even if you're not, like in Michelle's situation, she's a manifester. Laura is also a manifester. They've been operating in a world where it's like, just work harder, just keep doing it, go ahead, get in there, stick with it. So, and that's not how everyone operates. And so when something doesn't land, it's usually because you've been conditioned to believe otherwise. And there is so much freedom when you make that acceptance and are like, okay, this is just how I operate. I'm not broken. I'm not doing things wrong, like, and so forth. Because that's where our disalignment comes, is that when we are trying to operate outside of how we are built.
Mine also came up as a manifester.
Interesting. And I can work with you, Gio, after the fact to find, like, to pull and so forth, because we're also going to get to our bonus. Hold on.
Okay.
So, so here are 5 simple, not easy steps to setting clear boundaries. Okay. So you need to be clear on what you need and what are the non-negotiables, which you just did. You just said, this is what I need to have a balanced life. This is what, and you can, for each one, what is a must have? What is, I would love to have 30 minutes every day in nature, but 10 is my non-negotiable, no less than 10, let's say. So once you understand that, and then communicate with confidence. And that's where, if you understand how you communicate, it might need to be something in writing versus verbal, because that works better for you. It is, how can I take the emotions out of this? This is where we can role play on what does that need to be to get through that 5-minute conversation. And then we have to hold that line. So going to Laura's concept, like, we go on vacation, we come back in and we're going to do this thing, and then it all kind of falls apart again because we let those lines go. So how does that look? How do we hold that line? What does that look like? And then we have to release the guilt. There's so much guilt around boundaries and self-advocating, and it's not selfish. It is, this is what you need. It's no different than if you had to say, I need to take this medication. Do you feel guilty about taking medication? I don't think so. It is just one more piece that you need to be your best self. And so there has to be an active process of releasing the guilt. And that is in letting that go. And again, depending on how you're defined and in your human design is how we'll be grappling with that. And then always adjust. So think of this as our same circle. This is what I need. This is me saying what I need. This is me, like, defending it on the regular. Here's my big breath. And then I adjust again, because what works even this week might not work next week. And any of these systems and processes and so forth seems like a great idea. It's all shiny and new, but it's like, okay, it didn't work 5 out of the 7 days last week. So when did it work? What was at play there? And making these incremental changes. I want you to think about the fact that boundaries are not barriers. This is not like you in a box, and it's like you are all going to stay out there and I'm in here in my own little bubble. But rather, it's a bridge to get you from where you are to the life that you want to have. So each one of those boundaries, think of that as almost like the plank on this bridge of, these are what are getting you kind of to where you want to be. So now we need to create your action plan for success. We need to get you out of your burnout. So we just have a few minutes left. First, I promised you a bonus. And here I will put it into the chat in a second. But I want to offer each and every one of you, especially since I just like teased you with human design, to book a 40-minute session. If you've worked with me before, you're just, or even working with me now, you're just as, you can use this however you'd like. The bookings are there'll be openings Thursday, Friday, and Monday. For a 40-minute, you can use it for whatever you would like. So rethinking your whole life, wanting some insight on human design, need clarity on a job search, want to go over your resume, you do you. I'm there for whatever you need. Okay? Here we go. I'm so glad that it's not. All right. So on your outline, all those boundaries for each one, what is the specific boundary that's needed? Again, what will this take to do this? Is it a system, a routine, or a conversation? How will you know it's working? So often we set it and we just keep going and we don't have a clear outcome of what we want and we don't know how to measure it. So how will we know that it's working so that we can make those adjustments? What are the consequences? Again, you're at cause to yourself and to others if they're not held. Where is, again, it's similar, it's anyone who's had children or a pet. You have to set, these are just like these boundaries so that if we don't set it once and we don't hold to it, it's never going to stick. And so what are those consequences? When are you going to do this, my friend? What is the one thing you're going to do today to start this process? But I want you to give yourself a deadline for each one of these things, because you know what? Right on the other side of this Zoom is business as usual. And you're going to go right back into it and be like, oh, well, that was amazing. But now like I'm off being busy and so forth. I want you to hold yourself accountable to each one of these boundaries. When are you going to do this? And then if you've been working with me for even a moment, you know that you got to celebrate your wins. So for each time you create that boundary, have the conversation, set the system, set the routine, what are you going to do to celebrate? And when you keep to them, when you're getting yourself into this balanced place, how can you celebrate each week so that you can stay motivated to stick with it? And again, if you can't ever get to the celebration, you got to make some adjustments. And just holding the boundary is not celebration enough. I'm going to stop share. Any questions before we head off? I'm going to grab you. Let me get out of here. Let me grab you the link and put it in here to set your session. Any questions? That was a lot, and I did go 3 minutes over. So,
I know you recorded to share out. Will you be sharing the deck? I was trying to scribble down some of the stuff.
absolutely, absolutely.
It looks prettier.
Then you can like redo it all in the circle and so forth. Yes, I know you will, my friend.
Yeah.
Excellent. Awesome. No, I will absolutely do that. Use the session, you guys. I want you to keep putting these into motion. So any help you need and kind of creating that boundary, seeing what might be, talking it out, especially if you have that defined anja and crown. You need someone to hold space for you to talk it out so that you can get it out of your head and onto paper and have someone else asking you questions, not coming up with any solutions, so that you can get to your answer. Okay?
Janessa?
Yes.
You talked about the anja and both areas being defined. What happens if you just have one area defined or none defined?
Yeah, so if you have the anja only, you have you can't have just the crown. So it's either the anja or both. And so anja is all about your ideas and opinions and so forth. So you can still get into your head, but that is you with anja, it is more about you're holding to an opinion and you create it as a truth. And so there are times when it's like, nope, this is just the way it needs to be. And this is just the way it is, and so forth. And you have a hard time kind of seeing another way. And so that's also, and then there's a whole piece on your profile on how that is and how you process information as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A question?
Go for it.
Your availability is until Monday. Is that the?
I'm always available, but this 40-minute free is from now through Monday.
Okay.
Groovy. A little off center there. All right, my friends. Thank you so much for sharing your lunch with me. And I am here for whatever you need. I look forward to seeing my calendar just fill up with all your fabulousness.
Thank you, Janessa.
All right,
Thank you,
bye.
ladies.
Janessa.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have a great day.